Negotiators from Ukraine and Russia are now in peace talks in Istanbul, Turkey, the first face-to-face meeting in more than 2 weeks. There are significant changes from the last time the two sides spoke directly. And this is one of them. Ukrainian forces are retaking territory from Russian forces in the area around Kyiv. Now, we don't have a location for this video, only that it was recorded yesterday in the capital region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukrainian forces now hold Irpin, the suburb to the northwest of the capital that has been the scene of heavy bombardments and intense fighting. The city's mayor calls Irpin, quote, liberated, but Zelensky cautions it is still too soon to make definitive claims. A senior U.S. defense official says the Pentagon has no independent confirmation on who controls Irpin, but this morning's update from the U.K. Defense Ministry says Ukrainian forces are having success gaining ground there and in other suburbs. The report does caution Russian forces remain a threat to Kyiv. The other major development this morning is the near total destruction of Mariupol. As we reported yesterday at this time, the city's mayor says about 160,000 people remain trapped there. Fighting between Russian and Ukrainian forces is described as block by block, street to street. Ukrainian officials are hoping today to open a civilian corridor from Mariupol to allow citizens to drive out in their private vehicles. So that is our setup to coverage today. And with our CBC News team in the country is Salima Shivji. She's live in Lviv to begin our coverage this morning. And why don't we begin with a focus on the talks this morning, Salima, going on in Istanbul. What are we hearing so far?
Yeah, let's start there, Heather. Obviously, the main goal of the talks in Istanbul, the main goal on many sides is a ceasefire. Everybody is calling for this. Whether or not that will happen, whether or not there will be a breakthrough, seems quite far away as these talks are starting. But just the fact of these talks, the fact that they are happening in person in Istanbul is significant, right? The first in more than 2 weeks that these negotiators are speaking face to face makes a difference. What we're hearing from the Ukrainian side of things, that there is a slight willingness to move in terms of some of the things that they've been speaking about in the days leading up to these talks that were scheduled rather hastily to begin at early this week. What we're hearing from the Ukrainian side is that they could be willing to drop their wish to join NATO. They could be willing to state that they have neutral status, but there is not a lot of willingness to trade an inch of territory, of new territory. Take a listen to one of the advisors to the Ukrainian president about what they're looking for at the table today.
The general position is really we do not trade any inch of Ukrainian territory. But my president, acknowledged that in order to immediately stop the war and to have an immediate ceasefire and immediate withdrawal of Russian troops, we are ready to agree to withdraw Russian troops to the positions they had before February 24th.
So that's the thing, the interesting point. Russia will likely accept nothing less than that sort of position, keeping some of the occupied territories and contested territories of Ukraine before the start of this war. Sorry, it's a really busy situation here. The air raid sirens have just gone off in Lviv, so obviously people are pouring into this area, which is a little bit more protected than out in the streets. So that's the explanation of where I am right now, Heather. But back to those talks in terms of what is expected at the table. We're seeing Turkey's President Erdogan really positioning himself as a mediator, as somebody who can help both sides come to some sort of agreement. He says he is friends with both presidents and he's willing to help in any way possible, really stating that the world is watching what's happening at the table in Istanbul and really hoping for an end to this. Take a listen to what President Erdogan had to say as he kicked off these talks this morning.
The progress you will achieve in the negotiations will also pave the way for the next stage of contact at the leaders' level. We are ready to host such a meeting. Even the fact that you gathered here is a cause for hope in itself for the world and for your countries.
So there he is hinting at the possibility of future, perhaps in-person negotiations at the next level, possibly between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky at the highest level. Not ready at this point in time. Of course, much work needs to be done by those negotiators before anything resembling some sort of compromise can be put to the highest levels as we wait for some sort of sign, whether there will be a ceasefire or not. But Erdogan very much pushing for it and saying that the world is watching, and he says that there would be no losers in a path towards peace here. Only people who will benefit from this. Obviously, the Ukrainian people, particularly, so many displaced in their own country, so many refugees in other countries in Europe really suffering in this war, Heather.
Salima, as we talk about the talks, I want to bring in another image, and you see somebody there, not at the main table, but just off to the side, right there with the headphones on. That's the Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich, and he has a role in this. He's in the room. He's been acting as a broker early in the process here. But the mysterious story circulating now that he and some other Ukrainian officials were poisoned at one of the earlier peace talk sessions. What are we hearing about that?
That's right, Heather. Important to stress, and the Kremlin is stressing it today, that Roman Abramovich is just an informal advisor in some of these talks. But there are reports and claims that he and other Ukrainian negotiators that he has been speaking to as part of his role in these informal talks of a suspected poisoning. You know, reports that they were feeling symptoms of poison, eye inflammation, skin inflammation, temporary loss of sight, according to a spokesperson for Abramovich. No proof that this was indeed poisoning, but that is what is out there. So a bit of a sense of the danger that could be around these talks, and really sort of overshadowing a little bit the beginning of these talks, the fact that there are reports of a suspected poisoning unable to be verified at this point in time. However, Ukraine's foreign minister Dmytro Kuleba actually did refer to this in an interview on national television here in Ukraine, and he did say that anybody at the negotiating table today should be careful not to eat or drink anything, and that is as a result of those claims of a suspected poisoning. So a bit of a chill when you think about the reports that are going out, whether or not they are true. The Kremlin does say that the reports have no basis in reality, and that Abramovich is but an informal negotiator. However, as you mentioned, he is there today in Istanbul on the sidelines of this very important face-to-face meeting.
Well, I might say the same thing to you. Be careful with all the jostling going on there. Can you just, is everything okay there, Salima? Just what's happening? You said the air raid siren went off. Everything okay?
Yeah, the air raid sirens went off just as we were about to go live with you guys. So we did manage to move into this area, which is a little bit obviously very crowded. It's a distribution center for people who are new to the Lviv area, who have come from many other parts of Ukraine, obviously fleeing bombings and shellings in their cities. So this is where they come for aid. There are obviously a lot of boxes being shuttled around behind me. And it is busier, of course, because there were people out in the streets outside. And as soon as the air raid sirens went off, everybody shifted into here for a little bit of cover and waiting for that okay that there is no longer a danger here in Lviv. This happens rather frequently, of course, in Lviv, the western part of Ukraine, much safer than other parts of the country, but still under threat of attack at any moment. So don't fear, we are safe here, and we are undercover, and everybody else here as well.
Good. Make sure, obviously, that is a top priority for us as we talk to you in the morning, Salima. Thank you so much for all of that. Watching the talks in Turkey and the situation on the ground there in Lviv, Ukraine, our Salima Shivji.